since we watched The Office last week, both versions of The Office. First, I just wanted to say about The Office, man. So I watched some more of the UK one, and I really got to give it huge credit because I got to a point where they hired David Brent to do like motivational speaking because he's a manager of a company and he got recommended. Someone recommended him just by saying like, "Oh, he's a great talker. He's charismatic," which you could see why someone would describe him that way. But obviously, these people that hired him for this job don't know what he's like.
Is that the one? I think that's the one I saw where he shows up and he's wearing the T-shirt and he's got the baseball hat on. Yeah.
So you did see that one, yeah?
Yeah.
Like I had to take a break before he got to the event. I'm like, I'm going to bed. I'll watch this tomorrow because I can't see this. I can't watch it. I don't want to see this guy be ridiculous. But then what I really got to give it credit for is as I was just drifting off to sleep, I was thinking, like, if I had to write that show, like most TV shows, if you give me the gist of it or let me see some episodes, I might not write a great episode, but it'd be good enough, like, whatever. Where, like, I always used to think this with The Simpsons. Like, if it was my job to write The Simpsons, it would only be worse. Like, I just can't do it. I can't hit the beats they hit. And it's the same way with the UK Office. I'm like, if I had to come up with what he did, there's just no way I'd think of it. They think of all of these weird, creative ways for him to be the worst.
Last week, I watched one of the British ones, and I watched two of the American ones, and the American one doesn't even compare. The British one is very edgy. It's very, and it leaves so much to your imagination. And there's so much of it in people's looks and in their gestures, and they don't overplay it. Like if you weren't watching them really closely, you'd miss it. But every once in a while, like you're watching it and you just see a little eyelid raise or an eyebrow raise or a lip has a little curl to it. And that's all you get as to what's going on. Whereas the American one is very similar to what I find most American comedy TV shows are like. They got to lay it right out for you.
I noticed too, especially last week when we watched them, one thing I had never noticed before until I watched them back to back, but it was just that the camera work is different. Like
Yes.
the British one, you almost could claim as a documentary, where the American one, they would do that whip every time someone had a reaction. You can't just cut to the reaction. The camera somehow knows to whip right over and catch Jim's little, look to the camera, and then whips over to Michael Scott to tell the joke. And it's, even that. It's like the action movie version.
The two shows I watched, I found them boring.
Yep.
I also found that they didn't limit themselves to the office set itself, which the British guys pretty much do. They very seldom step outside of that.
Yeah.
That one of the American ones, my God, they showed them at the theater, it showed them on the street, it showed them in the office, it showed them in the parking lot. And that was all in one show. So they had a lot of scene changes. The British guys don't seem to feel the need to do set changes. They just do it all right there in the office, and it's all the reactions of people in one locale. And they pull it off, like, really well.
There is a little bit, like they go do like a pub quiz or whatever, but very much less than the American one. But I thought too, it's actually kind of handy that you've watched some more of each, because just this little thing, this is only like a minute and a half long, but I forgot this even happened. But it is kind of a nice little moment where they actually did do a crossover where the two bosses met each other. So it's kind of just a weird little thing.
Sorry, mate.
Oh, sorry, mate. Excuse me.
What are you doing?
English?
You're taking the mickey you picked on the wrong person.
No, I'm not picking on you at all. You're English, correct?
Yeah, big time, yeah.
I'm working on an English character. Would you mind? It's called Reginald Poofda.
Oh, David Brent, my liege. How are you?
Michael Scott.
Oh, bloody hell. I do characters as well. I got a Chinese fella, not politically correct, but he's called Holy. That's what it sounds like.
I do Bing.
Hello.
I'm Ping.
You can't do that these days.
I'm Ping. No. Right. And people don't understand that it has nothing to do with making fun of a different nationality.
No. Comedy is a place where the mind goes to tickle itself. That's what she said.
Oh,
that's good.
Oh,
Pleasure to meet you.
Where are you working?
Dunder Mifflin.
Any jobs going?
No, not right now.
Just let me know.
All right. See you around.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. A nice guy.
So anyway, I just thought that was kind of neat to see, because it's like, those two idiots would get along. It's just a nice little moment of the two bosses. But what I thought maybe we could watch this week, tying into that is because so The Office was Ricky Gervais's breakout thing. He wasn't really known before that. Then he was in a whole ton of stuff. But then I think the first time me and you probably watched him, but you probably didn't really realize who he was at the time, were the Karl Pilkington shows, The Idiot Abroad. And even those, like, we haven't watched them since they came out, so it's been at least 10 years. So I thought maybe we could just toss on, I found one of these, like, where at the end of his travels, he comes back home and recaps everything he did, and he just talks to Ricky, and Steve is the other guy that wrote The Office. So it's just fun to watch Karl again and just remember his dumb adventures. But it's just neat, too, to see Ricky Gervais be himself. And just to, I think I mentioned this last week, but it's sort of a nice, it's like a sort of relief that you're like, he's not David Brent. Like, he's still really entertaining, and he's a good guy in his own right, but it's like, he's not that guy, though. Because apparently how this started, really weird. So yeah, he was in this band in the 80s, and then that failed, Ricky Gervais. So then his normal job, I guess, was radio. He worked in radio, and this guy, Steve, that he co-wrote The Office with, he just hired him as an assistant, and they got along well. And Ricky, just to fuck around, he just had this character he called Seedy Boss that's just based on any bad boss, and he would just be the seedy boss. And they were like, we should write a sitcom about the seedy boss and pitch it to BBC, just pie in the sky nonsense. And then it got made, and it turned into The Office. And it's like, wow, all right, nice work. And then how they met this guy, Karl, is after The Office blew up, they went back to radio. They would do radio on the weekends except now it's like a celebrity thing. Oh, Ricky Gervais is on the radio. He used to work here, but you didn't care back then. Now we have famous Ricky Gervais on a radio show. So Karl was just the guy who ran the station. And they would just occasionally, get him on air to ask him about something. Hey, Karl, what's this, blah, blah, blah. And just more and more, they started to realize that this weird Manchester Karl Pilkington is just like a really downbeat kind of misanthrope, but really funny and really clever, and just a weird guy. So they kept bringing him on more and more. And then that evolved into, he never wants to... It's amazing he even left Manchester. He never wants to leave England. This guy's such a curmudgeon. Let's send him to Egypt. Let's send him on the trip that everyone else wishes they could take, just so he can complain about it. And it became this famous travel show. And like the whole series of events is so weird. But anyway, so I just thought maybe we'll watch one of those because I always loved those. If anything, I might like the Karl Pilkington stuff better than the Ricky Gervais stuff. Because what really made Karl stand out to me was when he went to see the pyramids. Because, you see so many of these travel shows and they're so like, oh, everything is so amazing out in the world. Everything is so wonderful. Where Karl was like, all right, here I am. I'm standing at the pyramids. Here's what they never show you on TV. Turn the camera around. And there's a Pizza Hut right there. Yeah. And there's a dirty, a nappy, he calls it, but, a diaper flowing through the air. And he's like, they never show you that either. This place is a scum pit, kind of. It's like, yeah, I'm seeing the pyramids, but like, why does every travel show have to act like, oh, I'm seeing the pyramids? Why can't both things be true? It's amazing.
And it's true when you get to those places.
Yeah.
Like I remember going to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Italy.
Right.
Holy God, it's not at all like what you see on TV. Well, it is. I mean, the tower's there and it's leaning.
Right.
And it's amazing. You're wondering, like, how the heck can it even stand up because it's leaning at such an odd angle, but there's all these people around and dirt and filth and, come and let me sell you this and let me sell you that and commercialism all over the place. Like, ugh.
Yeah, and I just don't see why you can't acknowledge that, I think it's important. So,
because nobody would want to go and see the stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, he's always been definitely my favorite travel guy because of stuff like that, for sure. So we're going to watch Idiot Abroad Season 2, Episode 8, Karl Comes Home, where he just recaps all the stuff he did in Season 2 of Idiot Abroad. Because, yeah, I think we watched all of these probably back in the day, but yeah, it's been 10 years, so...
Yeah, time to watch them again.
Yeah, it's like it's new again when when enough time passes.
The bucket list. See the glaciers before they melt. Go on an African safari. Encounter the world's largest mammal. The ultimate things to do.
Yeah, and I mean, he's definitely not wrong. Like, I don't think I would take this deal either. Like, even if you get to travel the world and see all these places, but you have to do all that stuff that he had to do, I don't know.
And for the most part, it looks like he's completely miserable doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, even just, like on a small level, like when, before Corona, when I did my last batch of traveling, like just before I left Amsterdam, I got really bad, like stomach bug. And I had no choice. Like I had to leave. I already had flights booked through Russia to Japan. My next Airbnb was in Japan. Even if I wanted to stay until I wasn't sick anymore, like how would that even work? I would have had to book another Airbnb in Amsterdam, rebook all those flights, rebook it. Everything would have been so expensive. I just had to do it, and it was so miserable. And that was still relatively easy. I still just had to sit.
And when you travel, you kind of want to have good memories. But, here he is eating rhino dung and rotten fish and going through jungles where he's wet and cold and there's mosquitoes biting him all the time.
And I always think of kind of the opposite. I mean, obviously, I have a great respect for Michael Palin and, his Monty Python days and stuff, but he is the other kind of travel guy, where if you ever see his travel shows, it's very much like...
It's very pleasant.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, look at the beautiful sunrise.
You want to go, and you want to do that stuff.
Yeah.
After you watch this guy, you don't want to go any of those places.
Yeah, like in particular, I always think as the other season, but where he went to India. And it's not like I ever particularly had India on my bucket list, but after seeing that, it's like, I really don't think so. Because it's just crowded, and he got instant diarrhea. Just like, oh, man. But yeah, I think that's what I like about his no bullshit is, like, I still want to travel. I still wish I could. I miss, with Corona, not being able to go places. But I think you shouldn't go into it without realizing what it is like. And then if you still want to go, great. But yeah, don't pretend it's so.
Yeah, don't pretend that you're going to get into those really hot countries and you're just going to look fresh as a daisy. Your clothes are going to be sticking to you. There were times in there he said, "Oh, that's going to give me a headache," and yeah, it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Even just that, just at that basic level. If just getting a headache, even that, like that's going to happen way more when you're traveling than when you're not, because you're just under more stress in general. And like, that's the tip of the iceberg. And I think, too, because, like, it's one thing with travel shows, but that's one thing that has not, like, necessarily cleared up with the internet age, where a lot of stuff, it is more, it's just, like, people making YouTube channels and stuff, so things are more honest. But not so much with traveling. Like, you still get YouTube travel people or Instagram people taking pictures, and it's all set up to look so pretty.
Or they'll show people like traveling on the train, or at the Taj Mahal, or at the Tower of Pisa, or whatever. They don't show the getting there, the crowds, the complications, the overcrowded buses, and how you may have to walk a good long distance in good, hot, sweltering weather. And then you see it. But normally what you see is, well, there it is. But how did you get there? And sometimes that can be pretty friggin' unpleasant and time-consuming and crowds. And, yeah, this guy kind of gives you all that.
Yeah, and it really is. Like, it's kind of perverse in a way. Like, the other guy, Steve, the tall guy, he mentions many times throughout the series, like, I can't believe you're being so down about this. Like, I would love to be able to do these things. But that's the irony, is like, yeah, well, you don't get to go. Karl gets to go because he's the one who doesn't want to. And, like, that's what's so weird about these shows. But yeah, I don't know. It is really... Because then if you can get through to him, if he likes something, you're like, fuck yeah, all right. It's not just this, like, yeah, like, everything is so great, everything's so beautiful. Or like that part where he's in the jungle. And yeah, just that, like, our vision, we're so disconnected in North America, at least, and probably in England too, where, like, my idea of the jungle is still like the Disney Jungle Book cartoon. Like, even just seeing how many flies were everywhere, like all of the gorillas had flies everywhere. And even that, it never occurred to me. It's like, yeah, of course they do. Of course they would.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not Treasure Island. It's not Robinson Crusoe. It's
And he
not.
mentions the mosquitoes. Well, you know what mosquitoes are like here and how annoying they can be when you're in the heat of the summer. Well, there, it's hot all the time. They would be there all the time.
And you might get malaria or something.
Yeah, or black flies buzzing around your face and trying to get in your eyes and in your mouth and in your nose. And yeah, I mean, of course it's like that. But that's not usually the vision that you have.
And I like too in that, like, I like seeing that other side too of Ricky Gervais where, like, it's still obvious that, you know, it'd be tough to be friends with him. He's obviously the kind of guy that is always needling at you and poking you and stuff, but he's not David Brent, you know, which is just, you know, very relieving and kind of nice. And yeah, that third guy, Stephen Merchant, he actually has gotten kind of famous too. He has kind of become an actor in his own right. He was in like a Wolverine movie a few years ago, and he had his own show too. They've all had their own shows that aren't necessarily that good. but I don't know, it is kind of neat that of The Office, not only was The Office really good, and then it spawned The American Show, which is not as good, but still, you know, hey, it could be worse. But then it spawned all this other stuff, and it's just amazing how many layers to this onion there are. But in some ways, Karl is my favorite of all of it. Of like, you know, The Office is great, but, you know, I watch it every decade or something. It's not really a big part of my life. Where those Karl shows, I mean, like, I've read almost all of his books. I think he has a second Moaning of Life book I haven't read. But yeah, all his travel books anyway. I went and bought them all one year. I'm just like, fuck it, I'm buying all of these. And yeah, I've watched those shows at least 2 or 3 times through.
He puts a realistic picture on stuff. Like even when he's traveling around in Alaska, oh yeah, you get the impression that it's freaking cold there. And of course it is.
Yeah.
We know that. We live in a cold country like that. But sometimes when you watch it on movies, TV, oh, it's like, I mean, everybody's wearing parkas and that kind of stuff. But they don't give you the impression that it's fucking cold. And you don't want to be out there. And his idea of his having that cushiony pants. Well,
Yeah.
Personally, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that actually what that made me think of is that the first time I went to Amsterdam, and when my friends Matt and Chris were there, it wasn't so bad. I was still feeling a little stressed because I'd never been overseas before, but at least I had, you know, friends with me. But then after they left, yeah, like it went down fast where I was just there by myself, and that's where I stayed maybe another week, and then I bought a plane ticket home because I just was freaking out. I was getting all anxious. But right after they left, I was looking for my next Airbnb. I couldn't quite find the place, and I sat down on like an elevated manhole cover thing, and somebody had peed on it, and I didn't realize. And I got pee all over my jeans, and they were the only pair of jeans I had. I was really trying to travel light, and that was when I realized I have to have 2 pairs of pants. So I went to a Starbucks bathroom and cleaned them as much as I could, and then I had to go buy a pair of fucking pants. And,
They cost a fortune.
yeah, oh yeah, it was crazy. It was 99 euros for some Levi, which is like, what is that, $140? I could not believe how expensive they were, but I didn't know where to go besides the tourist area. I'm sure if I just went to a discount store on the edge of Amsterdam, it would be a normal price, but I didn't know how to get there. Anyway, if I had the Pilko pump pant, you know, it wouldn't have been nearly as
But
bad.
if you want to stop and sit, people think, oh, well, I can just go sit by the curb or I can sit on that bunch of cement blocks over there. But if it's cold out, those friggin' cement blocks are pretty damn cold and that'll go right through you.
Yeah.
But if you had those pumping pants, hey, perfect.
Yeah, like they do look a little silly in that design, but it's honestly, yeah, not a bad idea at all.
And you could take the thing off. You could take the cushion out and put it around your neck. So when you're sitting on the bus and you want to have a little snooze, you've got your built-in cushion, your neck cushion. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I guess what makes him such a good TV presenter is he really is the opposite of, I mean, just take Ricky and Steve. Like Ricky was in, I'll just show you after the clip of Ricky from the 80s in his band he was in. But he was a musician, you know, he wanted to be David Bowie. Stephen Merchant, not as much, but that is how, you know, him and Ricky met, is that he went to university for BBC television production type stuff. Karl didn't do any of that shit. He had no, even the slightest inkling of a dream that he would ever have anything to do with any of that stuff. He just worked at a radio station. Apparently he was a really good, like, very competent manager of the radio station, and that was going to be his life. So I think that's what, it is just different. Like, if you grew up with that, like, stage mentality of like, I want to be a celebrity, I want to do celebrity shit, I think you do just naturally, like you don't want to rub people the wrong way, so you become fake because you want to be popular.
You exude enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Karl doesn't. He's just like your average guy, and he's a little bit down about stuff, but very realistic. And I just thought of another use of that of the pant pillow. Take it out, and when you want to lay down somewhere on a park bench or whatever, you've got a built-in pillow.
But yeah, like he definitely has the mentality of like, if my downbeat attitude is unpopular and if I don't get to do another TV series, that's fine. Why would I care about that? And that's just, that little change in mentality is not how anyone else would approach these things. If they started complaining too much, then in the back of their head, they'd be like, is this going to be an unpopular show? Am I not going to get hired again if I don't quit this? Or Karl's like, fuck you, here's the truth. Bullshit, man. Yeah, so anyway, I just thought that ties in nicely to The Office, and just need to watch that again because those are really good shows. But
the other thing about Karl, why that is probably successful, Karl is very much like your common man. He's not overly handsome, but he's not bad looking, but he's not overly handsome. He doesn't put on airs. He's very much like your average man off the street. And his feelings about things after he's been to these places are very realistic. I mean, I think there's a lot of people after they travel, they say, well, when I got there it was all right, but the getting there kind of stunk. And the getting home again was kind of stunk too.
Yeah.
He's very down to earth, very much representative of the common man.
Like, I can see why people initially kind of thought he was a character, because he does kind of feel like a stereotypical sort of put upon, just, stiff upper lip British guy. But yeah, the more you see him, it's like, there's no way this guy is an actor. And now at this point, there's no question. He is just Karl Pilkington. This is the guy. But yeah, initially, because it is sort of a British stereotype, but he embodies it so completely,
Yeah, yeah, he's very enjoyable to watch. But I think people like him because, you can relate to him very easily. You can see some of those things that he's done. You may not have world traveled, but some of those things and his reaction to them are very much, like the common man. You can say, oh yeah, I get that. I can see that. I would react that same way.
Isn't it weird too, the idea that in some ways it's like if you want something, you don't get it. But if you don't want something, you do get it. Like even just the fact that he became such good friends with Ricky Gervais, who is a huge star in England. Now, he's a pretty big star everywhere, but huge in England. So, I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of people that wish they were Ricky Gervais's friend, but Karl gets to be Ricky's friend because Karl will argue with him and won't put up with his nonsense, but also will, I guess, but just
get sucked in.
Yeah, but just that he doesn't care, about any of this. He doesn't care about being famous. He doesn't care about seeing the world. He'll be Ricky's friend, but I'm sure he'd survive if he wasn't. He's not gonna chase, I can have a famous friend. He doesn't give a fuck. And it's just funny that not caring got him all this way. And he really is legitimately clever. Like his books are, it's amazing just how his brain works, of just because they're just funny one-liners, kind of just his weird little asides and his way of seeing stuff. And it's one thing when you get these clips on a TV show, but when you read a 300-page book, it never ends. That's how his brain works all the time. And it's like, wow, this is incredible. So it's clever and stupid at the same time. I don't know, it's pretty amazing. So yeah, there we go. That was our quick little tour of Ricky Gervais's life, starting from The Office and his greatest achievement, Karl Pilkington.